Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we will see basic concepts of object-oriented programming. So these are the concepts which are commonly used by all languages which supports object-oriented programming. Languages just like C++, Java, VB.NET, C#.NET and many more languages which supports object-oriented programming technology. All these concepts are useful for that. So this term or these concepts are common for all of these languages which are supporting object oriented programming concepts. So just look at basic concepts of object oriented programming, which are as follows: objects, classes, data encapsulation, data abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding, message passing, or it is also called as message communication. All these concepts we will see one by one. So first, objects. So objects are nothing but runtime entities in object-oriented programming, that is in OOP. It can be anything, just like it can be object can be called as or we can say a person, a bank account, a table of data. It can be anything which will have some data and which can have some behavior, that can be said to be object for our OOP program. So at the time of execution of the program, objects interact with each other. Let us see the basic concept for the object-oriented programming is object. While designing program in object-oriented programming in O, so what are the problem definition is given? This problem is divided into number of objects, and on the basis of object the programs are designed. For example, if we are going to design one project or one software for banking, so what are the number of objects which can get involved in that? It can be a customer, it can be account, it can be a manager, or one of the object can be owner, whatever it is. So depending upon the type of objects involved in that, every object will have some specific role in our project, in our software. As far as customer is concerned, customer, it will have data just like name of the customer. It may have if you were for address, mobile number, PAN number, Aadhaar number, and all like this. If we are talking about the account, every customer definitely will have account number. So if we are talking about the bank itself, again bank address, branch name, and like this. So depend upon the type of object involved in our software, in our program, every object will have some specific amount of data or the group of data and the behavior, that means the functionality related to that object. And using all these objects together in our program, at the time of execution, definitely these objects can interact with each other for their functionality. So like this, let us consider there are two objects, customer and account. So anytime whenever the customer needs to check balance of his account, customer and account objects can interact with each other. Every object contains data and code to manipulate that data. So what are the object will be there? Just as said, if it is for example, if a student is one of the object, so every student will have name, roll number, subject marks, or address, mobile number. like this can be the information related to a class. This can be information or the data related to every student object, and every student object may have functionality or the behavior, or you can say code to manipulate this data, just like providing the information or display the information, total, average, grade. This can be the possible functions. That means every object will have some data, and to use this data, to manipulate this data, object use code. As I just said, objects interact with each other. While doing this interaction, objects interact without having to know details of each other's data and code. Means what? Even though here I am saying that customer and account, these two are separate objects, customer want to check balance of his account. So what is important over here? Customer only supposed to provide account number to account object, so that the related bank balance or related account balance can be given as a result of this function. So with the customer objects, it may have much more information, Aadhaar number, PAN number, whatever it is. Also to the account object, many more information is can be there. But while doing the interaction between customer and account, what is only important? Important is only the account number. Customer has to provide account number to the account object, so that perfect balance or his balance he can get as a return. So while doing the interaction, when the objects are getting interact with each other, so they will not see what is the remaining data, or what are the data items associated with each and every object, or the code associated with that object. It is not seen. So for the interaction, what is required? Just as said, if customer want to know balance of from account object, customer has to provide only account number. So which information is important? Only account number. So it is sufficient to know type of message accepted and the type of response returned by the object. So to know the balance of his account, customer need to pass account number. You can say type of the message, suppose it is of type integer here, so that must be given. And return type, you can say double value can be written as it is amount, you can say double can be the return type. So only two things are important for the interaction between two objects: the type of data which has to pass to the as a message, or the type of return value from the function. So here is just one structure for object, or logical diagram, or symbolic logical representation of object. So here in this example, this object is for student. Just we have said in discussion. So student is name of object. Every object have some data along with functions to manipulate this data. So here this student may have the data or like name, date of birth, marks, and many more data items can be added as per the requirement. And its associate functions are total, average, display, or as per the requirement. Here also we can add some functions. So this is one type of representation of object, or object can also be represent like this. Only the functions whatever associated with this students are specified in this diagram. Data is not mentioned. So both of these representations or diagrams are correct. You can represent like this or like this. Okay, so this was about object. Now let us see about the classes. So second basic concept, we will see classes. So as just we had seen that objects contain data and code to manipulate that data. If I want to have, just as we had seen previous slide, student object, if I want to maintain information of number of students, definitely every student will have name, his date of birth will be different, name will be different, marks will be different, and depend upon this data, their function should be there to use that data item. So if there are thousands of students or hundreds of students in one class, definitely hundreds of these types of objects are required. So for that, so whatever the data and code is required for the object, these data and code made user defined type using class. So as per the requirement, this group of data and the code I can make made as I can make this as user defined data type, and I can call this as class. And once the class has been defined, we can create objects of this class. N number of objects can be created, or any number of objects can be created from the class once it is defined. So objects are nothing but objects are variable of type class. So this is the relation of object and class. If I am saying that class is my user defined data type, with this user defined data type I can create any number of objects which are nothing but variables of type class. And the declaration of objects, these are very simple, just like our declaration of usual variables, just like int a, float b, as we used to declare our normal variable. Just like that we can declare objects for our user defined class. Class is collection of object of similar type. Another definition of the class, we can say that as if I want to collect data for 100 students, every student will have name, date of birth, marks, percentage, whatever it is. So that means class is nothing but collection of objects of similar type. So every objects which is associated with that defined class will have similar type of data and similar set of functions. So collection of objects of similar type is nothing but class. And again I repeat, objects are variable of type class, which is a runtime object is runtime entity for the class. So for example, if fruit is my class and I want to define or I want to declare one object for class fruit. So I can declare like this: fruit mango, where fruit is class and mango is my object. So this is as simple as declaration of variable in C++. So here data type and here name of the variable. So this is class and this is object. So as here we are using class, this variable is nothing but our object. So objects are variable of type class, hence it is defined, or hence it is declared as fruit mango. Now data encapsulation. So encapsulation means wrapping up of data and functions in a single unit, just like class, is known as encapsulation. So as just we had seen that a class is our user defined data type. So whatever the things required for object, the set of data and related functions are combined or wrapped in a single unit, and that is made as user defined data or class. And this wrapping up of data and function, we are calling it as encapsulation. So once, why it is called as encapsulation, it is because as whatever the data is available in the class or in for the object, this data can be accessible only by the object functions or the functions which are declared within the class. So data is not accessible to outside world. That means only the same object can access its own data. Remaining program, other objects cannot access an object or data of another object directly. So data is not accessible to outside world. Object functions provide the interface between object data and the program. So just as said, data within the object is not directly accessible to the outside world. So if it is not accessible, then what is the, anybody can think that, then what is the use of this data? So even though direct access of the data is not possible, but what are the functions which are written within the class, which are defined within the class for the same object, these functions are these functions can directly access its own data. So object functions are providing interface between object data and the program or the remaining part of the program for other objects. So because of this encapsulation, so what are the data written or available within the object, it is very much protected. So insulation of the data from direct access, this is called as the feature data hiding. So for every object, data is hidden for outside, and this is called as data hiding feature of object. Now data abstraction. So remember that as per the problem definition, our problem is divided into number of objects, and as per the requirement, as per the problem, whatever we have to solve, what are the software we want to make. For that, whatever the essential things of that object are there, only this essential part, only these much features we have to include in our object, in our class definition. So for example, so essential features only, no background details. For example, let us consider we want to open an account in our in any bank. So for that, only the things which are related to open an account, only that much information is taken from the bank, from the customer, like name of the customer, PAN detail, PAN number, Aadhaar number, address, mobile number. So these are a nominee. So these are only the basic essential features which we have to give as a information, as a data to the bank to open an account. So there it is not required what is your qualification, in which subject you have done specialization, and rest of the things or remaining data is not is never asked, or it is not taken from you. Or another example I can give, if I am a teacher and I want to collect data of my student for academics, only the essential data I will collect for the academic, that can be name of student, definitely roll number of student, mobile number, address for communication to contact a student, parent name, parent mobile number. Only this information, this is essential for me. I will not be definitely interested, or I will not collect the remaining data or extra data, or I will not collect background details, just like, so what is bank balance, or who are the relatives, what is uh, what is the native place, and all these details I am not going to collect because these are not essential for me. So only the essential part of the object is collected as a feature. So essential features only, no background details. So it is called as abstract data for our object we are going to collect. So as it is, we are collecting the abstract data, only essential part of the data. Class is also called as abstract data types. Now inheritance. So inheritance is a very again very important feature or a very important concept under OOP. So object of one class acquires the properties of objects of another class. So as in one program, in one software, we can define multiple objects. We can define multiple class for multiple objects. So definitely different types of objects will be there, or it may also happen that, let us consider, I have defined one class with some data items related some functions, and later I want to add some more features into that class for my objects. So instead of modifying the same class, what can I do? I can I can create new class from existing one, and new class object can acquire properties of its own plus properties of its base class. So it is said that objects of one class acquires properties of objects of another class. We will see with example also. So because of this, as one class is getting derived from another class, it is just like base class and derived class. It is like a hierarchical structure. So it is called as, it supports the concept of hierarchical classification. Each derived class shares common characteristics with the class from which it is derived. So as there is one class which is derived from another class from which it is derived, that class we will call it as a base class and derived class. So it is base class and derived class. So every derived class will have its own, the base class and the derived class will share the common characteristics that is coming from the base class. For example, if I am saying that there is one firm, and in firm different types of employees are working. So out of them, some are managers, some are salesmen, some are or or some are there will be some owner, there can be, or different types of different categories of employees are working in one firm. So out of them, what can I say? These all are employees, they may have some common set of data. If, as just like employee will have employee number, name of employee, or it may have some salary. So these are, I can say, these are some common features for all employees. I can say that this is my base class. Employee is my base class. From this employee base class, I am going to derive one class, that is salesman. Another class also I can derive from the employee base class, that is suppose manager. So every salesman will have the common features: employee number, employee name, salary structure. From the base class, these characteristics are common from employee and the salesman. Again, employee and the manager, these characteristics are common. So each derived class shares common characteristics with the class from which it is derived. So as we had just seen, employee is my base class. Derived class, one of the derived class is suppose manager, another derived class is suppose salesman. So we are reusing base class employee. So if I am not going to show this relation for salary, I have to place separately employee number, employee name, salary structure, and then sales department additional feature. In another class, suppose manager, I have to there specify again employee number, employee name, salary structure, uh, branch name where he is manager. So every time I have to use these data items repeatedly. So instead of that, here I am going to reuse the base class employee where the data is available, employee number, employee name, and the salary structure. So if I want to use only the common features and I don't want to have the specific features of the employee, I can just work on the employee class. So if I want to talk about specifically the salesman, then I will create object of salesman class. So it is just like you can say the new version of the class with more specifications. Okay, with more specialization. So this is reusability. So here we will see one example. Let us consider here we are having one class, that is student. So students will have the following attributes like name, address, and etc. So from this is my base class, or I can say this is my parent class. From this base class, I am going to derive one class and I am giving that class name. I'm going to derive two classes and I am giving names as UG students and PG students. Definitely in the student, every student will have name, address, or you can say roll number, class, whatever it is. These are the common features for every student. So this is kept in a base class. So if I want to specify which student he is or she is, I have to uh, be more specific whether he is or she is a UG student or PG student. So depending upon the UG or the PG student, some additional information may be there, so some new attributes may be there. If I want to have general attributes, I can create object of a student class. If I want to be specific UG student, I can create object of this UG student class or PG student class. Further, if we want, this is hierarchical structure. This is my base class which is having further two child classes. We can say this is my derived class 1, this is derived class 2, this is my base class. So if I want to do more specific, I want to see more specifications, I can further derive some classes from UG student. So from UG students we are going to derive a new class whether it is science students, because depending upon the stream subjects will be different or some rules will be different or some different information I need to store. So I can go for more specification whether science students. So for science students, one class is derived. For arts students, another class is derived. For commerce students, another class is derived. So science students, arts students, and commerce students, these are derived from UG student, and UG student is derived from student. If I am talking about the attributes of UG student, UG students will have attributes which are coming from students as well as its own attributes. That means active UG students will have attributes of students plus its own attributes. PG students will have attributes of students plus its own attributes. Similarly, here science students will have attributes of students plus attributes of UG students and plus its own attributes. So for art students, features, or you can say features or attributes features, common features of students plus features coming from UG students and features of its own. And likewise, commerce student will have features or attributes coming from students plus attributes of UG students and its own attributes. So student is reused, UG students is reused, and here we have defined next level classes: science students, art students, and commerce students. So this was about inheritance. Now polymorphism. So polymorphism is ability to take more than one form. So it is just like we can say there are many more examples. First we will see simple examples and we will move for technical examples. So we can say addition operator taking multiple forms. How it is so? As we all know that plus symbol is used to add two numbers. If my operands are numbers, suppose 1 plus 2, I can easily say it is 1 plus 2 is 3, as my operands are integer. So plus sign, if my operands are integer, it will get add together and provide me result as third integer. But if my operands are string, string 1 plus string 2. So in this case, this plus sign will not perform addition, it will perform operation of concatenation and will join these two strings and will provide me third string. So operator is same plus sign, but depend upon the operand we are using, it is giving me different results, either addition or concatenation of strings. So same thing having multiple form, plus sign having multiple forms, we can say here is a polymorphism. So this is in general we can see, or if more simple example we want to see, uh, in every language there are some words which are having multiple meanings. Depending upon the context, we have to take the appropriate meaning. If I am saying that it's a class, it is having different meaning. A class can be complement. It is very good, just like that it's a class. It can be a teaching classroom, or it can be a class in our C++ or OOPS programming. So depending upon the context, whatever I am using, I have to take the appropriate meaning for that. Another example we can say, let us consider there are some in OOPS language I am saying there are some objects or few things in front of me. So there is one boy, one fish is there, one aeroplane is there, one car is there. So these are objects in front of me, or these are things in front of me, and I am giving command go. So when I am giving the command, as per the type of object, as per the thing in front of me, I am getting different reactions from there. Boy will, when I say go, boy will start running or walking. Another object, I said fish, it will start swimming. If it is a flight, if it is an aeroplane, it will take off. And if it is a car, start running. So depend upon the type of object, I am getting the reaction, I am getting the result for the same command. Remember the command is same for everyone, go. But I am getting different results. So depending upon the type of object present over there, I am getting the different result. This is again one type of polymorphism which can be implemented programmatically also. Another example, function overloading. We have already discussed about the function overloading. If you want to have more details about function overloading, in description box I am providing link for that. So function overloading, where a same function name can be used for multiple functions, and as multiple different functions are there sharing same function name, definitions will be different, code will be different. So depending upon the type of uh, and the number of parameters, different code can get execute. So results can be different. Even though the function name is same, you can get multiple results, different results. So this is again example of polymorphism, or ability to have more than one form. So dif- different internal structure to share same external structure, just as I had given four types of object and go command. Depending upon the type of the uh, object or instance, I am getting the different result. So external structure, you can say that external structure is same. My command was go, that is suppose external structure, but the internal structure is different, uh, because as per the object I am getting the different result. So the procedure or the code execute over there will depend upon the type of object. So we can say internal structure is different even though the external interface is same. So extensively used in implementing inheritance. So polymorphism is mostly coming with inheritance. So we will see example for that also. So let us consider, here we are having one object, that is shape, or one class, you can say a class of type of shape. Here in this class, one function is declared, that is draw. So if I am just talking about this object, I want to draw some shape by using draw function. Shape can be of any type. Shape can be circle, shape can be rectangle, it can be triangle, whatever it is. To draw a shape, definitely I have to apply specific code for that. In general, shape do not have any meaning. So here only draw method, draw function is declared. Now I want to be more specific which type of shape it is, and for that from shape class we have derived some classes. First is circle class, or here I have written circle class object. Second is box class. Third is triangle class. So circle class will have circle object, box will have box object, triangle class will have triangle object. So from any of this, in circle object it is also having draw method, box also having draw method, triangle also having draw method. See, method names are same everywhere. Here is draw present, here is draw present, here is draw present, here is draw present. So whenever I am calling draw method in the program, depending upon the type of object, whatever I am using, whether it is circle, box or triangle, that type of shape I will get as a result. So here also I can say external structure is same, it is name of the function draw, but the internal structure can be different. For every draw function the code is different, and that's why here as a result of this draw circle, from circle object I will get result as a circle, here I will get result as a box, here I will get result as a triangle, because code is different. So it is called as external structure is same but internal structure is different. Now look at dynamic binding, next concept. So binding means linking procedure call to the code to be executed. We know that in our program number of times we used to call some methods, we used to call functions. So whatever the function or whatever the procedure is called at the time of at the time of execution, that code need to be executed. So the point or the line where the procedure is called, that procedure call need to connect, need to link to the code of the procedure which is to be executed, and this linking is called as binding. So binding means linking procedure call to code to be executed. Now, what is dynamic binding is? So binding just we have seen. Now let us see dynamic binding. So dynamic binding means code associated with given procedure call is not known until the time of a call at runtime. So whatever the procedure I want to call, so that procedure is known at the time of execution of the program, that means at the time of run only, and therefore the linking of the procedure call with code to be executed with the procedure to be executed, that is done at the time of run only. Until the runtime it is not known. So this linking is happening at the time of execution, at the time of run. So it is called as dynamic binding. It means at the time of compilation it is not known that which procedure need to call at the time of execution. At the time of compilation it is not known. When program is when the execution is started, at the time of execution only it will be clear that which procedure need to call, which code need to bind to the procedure call. So it is called as dynamic binding. So just as we had just seen example, draw circle, draw triangle, draw box, whatever it is. So depending upon the object at the time of execution, which type of object is used for the draw procedure, the related code will get linked at the time of execution. So that is also can be example of dynamic binding. It is associated with polymorphism and inheritance, definitely. So just again I take same example for draw object. So we had done inheritance, as everywhere draw method is used, one function name used for multiple functions. So that is our polymorphism, and the object which we are passing is getting clear, or it is known at the time of execution only. So at the time of execution the linking to the linking of the code with the procedure call is done. So we can say that dynamic binding is always associated with polymorphism and inheritance. Now message passing, or you can say message communication. The main idea regarding object-oriented programming is to have multiple objects so that the programming task will be easy. It is better to it will be easy to design data by focusing on the to object. It will be easy to design data for that object and code for the object. So at the time of execution, all of these objects will get interact with each other by passing messages to one another. So passing message from one object to another object is nothing but requesting, giving request to to the object to execute some procedure, to execute some function. So in OOP, set of objects communicate with each other, and this involves following steps. So we want to communicate, we want to have communication between different objects. Definitely for that these steps are required. Creating classes that define objects and their behavior. So to have object, as we know that object is variable of type class, so for that we have to first create we have to create classes for which will define behavior and features for the class, for the object. So after creating the required classes, we have to next step will be creating objects from class definition. So as per the requirement, classes are created, and for these classes we have to create objects. So once objects are created, we have to establish communication among these objects. So next step is establishing communication among objects. So create object, declare class, create object, and then establish communication between objects. So this is done by passing message. A message for an object is a request for execution of a procedure. So if one object want to communicate with another object, that object need to pass message to another object, and so that is nothing but to execute some procedure, to execute some function. Invoke a function and procedure and it produce desired result. So when the required function will get invoked, will get execute, it will provide or it will produce the desired result. It so this message communication involves name of object, the name of the function which is to be executed, and information to be sent. So it for example, if employee is one object, so in this object salary is a function written for that object. So employee object, name of the salary is name of the function, and name is the name of employee, for example. So here I can say employee is object, salary is message, and information name is information. So object can send message as salary by providing name of the employee, and as a result salary of employee can be can be written, can be produced as a result. So this is all about basic concepts of object oriented programming, which can be commonly used with any of for all types of for all the language which are supporting to OOP, like Java, C Sharp, C++, VB.NET, C Sharp.NET, whatever it is, these basic concepts will remain same. So these all concepts are very essential to know, very important to know. Okay, thank you. Thanks for watching video. Keep watching.